Hey, what's up guys out there in YouTube land? This is Robert Ham with Robert Ham Photography coming at you with another tutorial today. Actually, today is my one-year review of the Surface Pro 3. I'm about to tell you about it right now, so let's get started. So, I've been using the Surface Pro 3 for just about 14 months now. Now, when I purchased my Surface Pro 3, I got the i7 version, 256 gigabyte hard drive, and 8 gigs of RAM. And of course I got the original Surface Pro 3, the type cover that came with it, as well as it came with the Surface Pro 3 pin. And since then, of course, I've upgraded both the type cover and the pin. If you currently own a Surface Pro 3, upgrading the type cover and the pin are two of the #1 things you can do in order to really improve your experience with the Surface Pro 3. Now, I know that the i5 version was probably what most people purchased. I used the i5 version, and I upgraded from the i5 to the i7 version, and I did find that there was a performance boost, but there was also a hit to the battery. But let's actually talk about this in a little bit different terms real quick. Right now, you're just going to see some images and some video that come from me using the Surface Pro throughout the past year, and just to kind of give you a feel. So please enjoy that as we're going through, and we're getting ready to talk a little bit about the pros and the cons, and then why and how I use it, and what my recommendation for anybody else out there is for Surface Pro 3 or a Surface product in general. So let's kind of talk about the pros. The design, I absolutely love the design. The thin and light portable design means that my Surface Pro 3 goes with me pretty much everywhere. The pin, specifically the new pin, the one with 1024 levels of pressure, and the button on the back that features an eraser, the one that came out with the Surface Pro 4, is great, and I really like it. It's got removable nibs you can change out that are really nice. Enjoy it. The screen, now my screen has 216 pixels per inch, which is pretty much the same as my MacBook Pro with the Retina display. But it's really nice to be able to use this device in my hands while I'm sitting at a coffee shop and drinking a cup of coffee. And so using the screen, and you'd be able to zoom in, and that nice high-def screen very close is great. Of course, the Surface Pro 4 has an even higher definition screen, so that's something to keep in mind there. And the portability, we talked about that, but it goes literally with me everywhere. Now, some of the cons, Windows is still buggy from time to time. They don't have this wake-up feature like tablets, like an iPad would have. You just push the button and it's on. You push your phone and it's on. Sometimes with Connected Standby, you push the button and it takes it a second or it forgets what it's doing. So that's been a little bit of an issue. But and the battery life, specifically with Pro apps. Now, well, I should say programs, because remember, this is a full-featured laptop. It runs it runs Photoshop, it runs Lightroom, it runs Premiere Pro. So when you're using those applications, you have to keep in mind that the device is going to be hit hard. I get 2 to 3 hours when I'm working in Lightroom. If I'm working in Premiere Pro, I get about 2 hours and 90 minutes to 2 hours, especially if I'm rendering something. Other than that, the multitasking that you can do in the productivity through using Google Chrome or Edge or Microsoft Word and Excel and things like that, second to none. Now let me tell you a little bit about how I use this. I'm a photographer, and I do about 95% of my photo editing on this device. I use Lightroom. I export out to Photoshop, and I just enjoy it. Now, the Surface Pro 3, the one that I have, is slower on exports and even in regular use than my MacBook Pro. But because it's so portable, I just take it with me everywhere, and I use it everywhere, so I get a lot of use out of it for that. As a quick comparison, you figure when you're exporting a 32 megabyte file, my Fuji RAW files on my Mac is about 4 or 5 seconds, on my Surface Pro is about 9-10 seconds to export one 32 megabyte file from JPEG to RAW. And when I'm using Lightroom on the Surface Pro 3, even the i7 model, you're really only going to limit yourself to about 30 frames a second, 1080p. You can do 60 frames a second, but it gets a little rough. But I use this as a photographer. I do the majority of my video editing on my MacBook Pro, and I import all of my images directly to the Surface Pro 3, and then using Lightroom, and then work on them from there. And I enjoy it, and I like it because the pen and the brush functions work very well with Lightroom, as well as the just using the brush and the pen input. I mean, that whole thing just works great in this kind of clipboard mode where you're holding it in your hand and you're sitting down and you're enjoying it. And it's easy to edit. It works great. Would I recommend it? Absolutely. Especially in the way that I've just described for you guys. But if you could get a Surface Pro 3, you might as well get a Surface Pro 4. And, with the new models that they come out with, much faster, 30 to 50% faster than the current line of Surface. I have absolutely and completely and thoroughly enjoyed using this device. It's a big recommend because it has improved my workflow, because it goes with me pretty much everywhere. I can edit anytime I want to, and it's an absolute joy to use. So there's something where form meets function, that you enjoy performance, that you get a productivity that wouldn't normally be seen. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Just a few moments to tell you about my impressions of the Surface Pro 3. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.